currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote council session. Due to the current public health emergency, City Council is currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make this remote meeting possible. Instructions for how the public may view the meeting and offer public comment are included in the stated meeting notice that was published in the Daily News, Enquirer, and Legal Intelligencer prior to the meeting, and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. I now note that the hour has come. The clerk will please call the roll to take attendance, and members, just please remember to say a couple of words to make sure that your photo is displayed. Mr. Decker, please proceed.
Councilwoman Bass.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to everyone for being here and caring about the people's business. Thank you.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Brooks.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Councilman Dom.
Morning, Council President and colleagues and the listening public.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Gauthier.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here today.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Councilman Green.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, public. Good to be here for another session of City Council.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Gim.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Councilman Heenan.
Councilman Heenan is having technical difficulties. It's noted in the chat box. We can come back to him.
Councilman Johnson.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Still screaming justice for Breonna Taylor.
Good morning, Councilman.
Councilman Jones.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, viewing public.
Good morning.
Councilman O.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Councilman O'Neill. Councilwoman Parker.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Present.
Councilwoman.
Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez.
Buenos dias to my colleagues. Thank you.
Buenos dias.
Councilman Squilla.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Councilman Thomas.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Happy to be here this morning.
Good morning, Councilman.
Council President Clark.
Great. Good morning. Thank you. We've established a quorum and will now come to order. Despite the great need, there will be no invocation today. We will, however, observe a very brief moment of silent prayer for our city, its leaders, and citizens during the current public health crisis. We will now observe a brief moment of silence. Thank you very much. Our next order of business is the approval of the journal of the meeting of Thursday, October 1, 2020, and the chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the approval of the journal for Thursday, October 1st, 2020.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly approved. At the meeting of October 1st, 2020, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Ayes have it, and that journal is approved. And our next order of business is request for leave of absence. And the chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the members of council, there are no requests for leaves of absence today.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to Councilwoman. Our next order of business is communications. And Mr. Decker, would you please read the messages from the mayor and any other communications that you may have in your possession?
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, I respectfully request and submit for the consideration of your honorable body a resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority deeds conveying fee simple title to city-owned lots and pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon situated in the second councilmanic district of the City of Philadelphia, and a resolution approving the appointment of Ismail Shahid as a member of the Board of Commissioners of the Philadelphia Housing Authority, and an ordinance amending Section 2 of an ordinance, Bill number 180560, approved July 10, 2018, entitled, an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan number 250 by striking from the city plan and vacating the legally open portion of Montour Street from Adams Avenue to Falkright Street, by extending the period for compliance with the terms and conditions stated therein, and an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan number 299 by striking from the City Plan Parker Avenue from a point approximately 156 feet southwest of Matthias Street to its terminus southwestwardly therefrom, and reserving and placing on the City Plan a right-of-way for various utility purposes within a portion of Parker Avenue being stricken, and authorizing acceptance of the grant to the city of the said right-of-way, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. And our next order of business is the introduction of bills and resolutions. And by way of a reminder, we are asking that all resolutions, including privilege resolutions, be placed on the final passes calendar for the next session of council unless they are being referred to committee. In our current remote environment, this procedure will provide an appropriate opportunity for public comment. And I just want to thank you very much in advance for your cooperation. Mr. Decker, would you please read the titles of the legislation that is being offered today by the members?
Councilwoman Parker offers one bill entitled an ordinance amending Section 2 of an ordinance, Bill number 180560, approved July 10, 2018, entitled an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan number 250 by striking from the City Plan and vacating the legally open portion of Montour Street from Adams Avenue to Falkright Street, by extending the period for compliance with the terms and conditions stated therein.
Heard the committee.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson offers one resolution entitled a resolution authorizing City Council's Committee of the Whole to hold all hearings required pursuant to Bill number 200364A, which established a requirement that the council hold hearings in connection with anticipated collective bargaining agreements between the city and police employees in the Philadelphia Police Department, represented by the Fraternal Order of Police.
Heard the committee.
That's authorizing a hearing, Mr. President.
Oh, okay. Today's calendar. Sorry.
Councilwoman Gim offers one bill entitled an ordinance amending Title 10 of the Philadelphia Code to create a new Chapter 10-2500 entitled Less Lethal Devices to regulate the use of less lethal devices in specific situations.
Thank you. Councilwoman, did you want to be recognized at this point?
Yes, please.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Councilwoman Gim.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to thank all my colleagues, especially those on the Public Safety Committee. 8 of us are submitting a bill that would require the police department to make permanent its current moratorium on the use of tear gas, rubber bullets, and less lethal munitions in clearly First Amendment related activities. Last night, we had a chance with our Public Safety Committee and many others. Thank you, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, and others for joining us to hear from residents who were impacted by the events of May and June in the aftermath of the killing of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many others. We heard 3 hours of testimony of people who talked about how they took to the streets to demand justice, to talk for, to see a better tomorrow. And they were met with a show of force that had not been deployed on such a scale in our city in decades. Militarized vehicles rolled down 52nd Street. Tear gas, pepper spray, acrid chemicals filled the air. Individuals held up sizable tear gas canisters that had been shot at them. Without warning, rubber bullets and other objects tore through West Philadelphia and on I-676, forcing families to evacuate and leaving many with no place to retreat. The targeting was clear. It was indiscriminate. It was young people. It was journalists. It was observers, demonstrators, longtime residents, and those calling out for assistance. Many of us had witnessed videos and maybe social media posts that documented the chaos and terror, but few of us on the ground had heard directly from the people who experienced it. Last night, we had a chance to hear from many of those people, and I think that their stories were loud and clear. I want to express my gratitude to those who shared. I know they did so from a place of anger that was palpable, and let's be honest, justified. But they also did it with an urgent call for us to change. And the courageous words of ordinary Philadelphians demand more of us. The retelling and reliving of those stories was extremely hard. And I firmly want to reiterate again before our full city council that every single person who stepped forward last night or who submitted their written testimonies and took the time to talk with us, engaged with council over the last few months, did the city and their communities a profound public service. There are multiple investigations that are going on. We are not pretending to do that. City Council wanted to hold space to recognize that the voices of our residents have to guide the work that we do, and that their courage calls us to task to build a better Philadelphia. So I'm proud to, along with my colleagues and especially our public safety chairman, Councilmember Jones, to submit this bill. I know it will go through a rigorous review. And I know that we face difficult times ahead, including the fact that in the next couple of weeks, we also will continue over the next couple of weeks and months. We will continue to be tested about what our commitment to civil liberties are, what First Amendment freedoms are, and how we intend to fully uphold the constitutional right to voting, to walk freely through our city, to make sure that we are safe in our communities as well. I hope that this bill will be part of that conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. Refer to committee.
Councilman Jones offers one bill entitled an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades in a portion of City Plan number 299 by striking from the city plan Parker Avenue from a point approximately 156 feet southwest of Matthias Street to its terminus southwestwardly therefrom, and reserving and placing on the city plan a right-of-way for various utility purposes within a portion of Parker Avenue being stricken. Acceptance of the grant to the city of the said right-of-way.
Refer to committee.
Councilman Johnson offers 4 bills and 1 resolution. On behalf of Council President, Councilman Johnson offers an ordinance authorizing transfers and appropriations for fiscal year 2021 from the general fund, the council, to the general fund, the Department of Planning and Development. On his own behalf, Councilman Johnson offers an ordinance amending Chapter 21-1500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Boards and Commissions, Public Deliberations, to require recording of transcription of certain meetings and provision to the public of access to such recordings and transcriptions. And an ordinance authorizing DSW1 LLC, doing business as Nifty 50s, to install, own, and maintain a proposed sidewalk cafe at 2700 South 10th Street. And an ordinance authorizing Stefan Garofolo to construct, own, and maintain a proposed exterior stairway at 3000 South 15th Street.
Those 4 bills just read by the chief clerk will be referred to the appropriate committee.
And a resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority deeds conveying fees, simple title to the city on lots of pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon situated in the 2nd Councilmanic District.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman Green offers 1 resolution entitled a resolution declaring October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the city of Philadelphia.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman Dom offers 1 bill entitled an ordinance amending Title 9 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Regulation of Businesses, Trades, and Professions by adding a new chapter entitled Residential Property Wholesalers to regulate the solicitation of purchases of real property and require certain disclosures by property purchasers to homeowners, and amending Chapter 9-1100 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Fair Practices Ordinance, Protections Against Unlawful Discrimination, to provide protections to homeowners from solicitation and related problems.
Refer to committee.
Council President, can I be heard on that?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, Councilman.
That's okay.
I
Thank you.
recognize Councilman Dom.
Thank you, Council President. And I really want to thank Community Legal Services and the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors for their willingness to work together on this important issue to protect property owners in Philadelphia. Also want to thank the administration, Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations, and the Law Department for their countless hours of work and their valuable input on this bill. Also appreciate the level of support I received from many of my colleagues, and would like to thank those who co-sponsored this bill. Council members Gilmore Richardson, Squilla, Quinones Sanchez, Johnson, Gautier, Parker, Thomas, Green, Brooks, and Councilmember Kim. Thank you all very much. Also, I look forward in this bill to helping residents across Philadelphia to better understand their rights as property owners and level the playing field by arming them with important information they need should they wish to sell to a wholesaler or avoid them altogether. And we've all seen these buy houses or cash for home signs throughout the city. We see them on telephone poles and all over the city. And we've heard the horror stories from so many homeowners who've undersold their homes or fought alongside someone to regain ownership of their home. And after unknowingly agreeing to what they thought was a fair deal, but in many cases was not. Making an offer to buy someone's home is not illegal, and it's certainly not illegal to sell your home for any price or for any reason you see fit. However, we have to be sure that everyone at the table is abiding by a shared set of standards and rules we all deem reasonable and responsible. Many wholesalers currently working in the shadows with no real oversight, and it's time now that we shed some light on their practices. So it's my hope with this legislation that we will provide more protections for homeowners who are solicited by wholesale buyers, and will be able to hold them accountable to the standards we expect of our businesses. Again, I want to thank CLS, Community Legal Services, and the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors, GPAR, for their ongoing dedication to this effort. And it was great to see them working together. And I look forward to working with all of my colleagues to educate our residents and set these new standards for wholesalers doing business in our city. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman.
Council President.
Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Yeah, Council President, I just want to applaud my colleague, Councilman Dom, for this piece of legislation. Living in a gentrified neighborhood, I have seen and I continue to see the aggressive tactics of individuals coming into the neighborhood, soliciting for residents to sell their homes. A lot of individuals in the neighborhood sell their homes way below under market value, but also going even beyond that. The process has become so disrespectful because I've had constituents reach out where they have lost loved ones, and they will go down to the registered wills office and will pull a person's death certificate, and then they will begin to start calling and soliciting that individual to sell their home. There have been text messages. Don't know where they're getting our phone numbers from, but text messages and phone numbers aggressively asking you to sell your homes. And it's primarily happening in areas that are becoming gentrified. And so I thank Alan Dom, who comes from the real estate community, for stepping up to the plate and addressing this issue. Thank you very much, Councilman Dom.
Thank you, Councilman Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman, and that will be referred to committee.
Councilman Thomas offers one resolution entitled, "A Resolution Honoring and Congratulating the Northeast High School Football Team on their successful 2019-2020 season and overall 12-2 record in the Philadelphia Public Football League."
Awesome. That will be on next week's calendar.
Councilwoman Bass offers one bill and two resolutions entitled, "An Ordinance Amending Chapter 19-200 of the Philadelphia Code entitled City Funds, Deposits, Investments, Disbursements by revising the list of city depositories."
For the committee.
And a resolution authorizing the committees on Education and Public Health and Human Services to hold joint hearings examining the School District of Philadelphia's preparedness for public health and environmental emergencies, and to develop best practices that can help the district adequately prepare for these emergencies.
This week's calendar.
And a resolution authorizing the committees on Public Health and Human Services and on Children and Youth to hold joint hearings examining current and best practices to ensure youth have a successful transition from foster care to thriving adulthood.
This week's calendar.
There are no other bills or resolutions being offered by the members, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. And our next order of business is reports from committees, and the chair recognizes Councilman Johnson for a report from the Committee on Rules. Councilman Johnson. Okay, we'll come back. We'll find out what's going on. We'll go come back to Councilman Johnson. We'll find out what's going on. The chair now recognizes Councilwoman Bass for a report from the Committee on Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs.
I'm ready, Council President, when you
got
are.
it?
I apologize.
Okay.
I had technical difficulties.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to Councilman Johnson. Councilman Johnson, just calling on you.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Rules reports out one bill with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Please read the report.
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, the Committee on Rules, to which is referred Bill number 200349, entitled an ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Zoning and Planning, to amend certain provisions of Chapter 14500, entitled Overlay Zoning Districts, by creating the AME, American Street Overlay District. Respectfully reports that it has considered and amended the same, and returns the attached bill to Council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Chair again recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended as so to permit first reading of this bill, number 200349.
Second.
Thank you. There's been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 200349. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Ayes have it, and this bill will be placed on our first reading calendar today. Chair now recognizes Councilwoman Bass for a report from the Committee on Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs. There's another challenge. Councilwoman Bass. Okay. Someone reach out.
Mr. President, we'll text her.
Yeah,
We'll
somebody.
text-
Okay, she's just saying she's having technical difficulties. Okay, we'll try and get back to her prior to the session end. That concludes our reports from committee at this time. And our next order of business is consideration of the calendar. And I note that the bill just reported from committee with suspension of the rules have been deemed to have had a first reading. These bills will be placed on our first reading calendar, and our second reading calendar, and final passage calendar in our next session of council. As there are no additional bills on our first reading calendar, the chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker for the purpose of calling up resolutions and bills on the second reading and final passage calendar today.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following resolutions and bills are being called up from the second reading and final passage calendars today. They are numbers 200519, 200522, 200523, 200525, 200528, 200529, 200530, 200532, and 200534. All other bills and resolutions are being held.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman. Before we proceed with the consideration of the public comment, I will now take a brief 5 to 10 minute, I think it's going to be more like 5-minute recess to give our technology professionals some time to connect the speakers we have for today's meeting.
Hello?
President, council members, and participants.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Karen Harvey. I'm a retired social worker. I am also a lead organizer at TURN, director of the Philadelphia Rent Control Coalition, and a member of the Philadelphia Tenants Union. I lived at the Penguin House Apartments from March 2010 until June 2017. From December 2016, when I and the other 100 plus tenants of Penguin were informed of the pending mass eviction, until June 2017, I applied for 40 different residences in search of a place to live. Myself and numerous other Penguin tenants were erroneously filed against in landlord-tenant court 3 times for supposed failure to pay rent. Any month for which we were unable to present rent receipts was deemed as our having failed to pay. Because of an inept maintenance man who flooded my apartment when he failed to turn off the bathroom water valve before raising the toilet to repair it, many of my belongings, including the majority of my rent receipts, were destroyed in that flood. Each eviction filing became a stain on my credit report, making it impossible for me to find a decent place to live. Finally, and only thanks to a family friend's willingness to provide me with a character reference, in June 2017, her landlord agreed to rent me a house where I continue to reside today. I live in West Philadelphia, on a block known for illegal activity and gun violence. I don't feel safe in my home. On 2 separate occasions, young men were shot in front of my door. Just this summer, my next-door neighbor was shot when an errant bullet went through her front door, hitting her as she sat watching television. There's virtually no police presence on my street. There are as many abandonments and vacant lots as there are occupied homes on my street. More than once, young men have followed me from the L stop onto my block, only turning back after a neighbor exiting her home spoke to me. Both times, the sun was still high in the sky. I am a senior using a cane, ripe for the picking. Rarely am I outside after dark alone. Almost nightly, young men lounge on my front steps, smoking weed and drinking. Last week, as is their frequent custom, they left their party favors behind for me to pick up. Thinking I'd gotten everything, walking down the cement steps, I stepped on an unseen plastic container and fell down the remaining steps. Because of those court filings on my record, I am unable to secure a safe place to live. The resolution presented today by Councilman Thomas represents my only chance of securing safe and decent housing for the remainder of my golden years. I seek nothing more than that which each of you desire for your own parents, a safe and decent place to live. I ask each of you in good conscience, is it really fair for me to be denied that right? I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak on my truth today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Harvey.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You're welcome. Mr. Decker, do we have anybody else?
There are no other speakers on the public comment list, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. We will briefly go back to our reports from committee, and at this time I would like to recognize Councilwoman Bass for a report from the Committee on Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs reports out 2 bills with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Decker, please read the report.
The Committee on Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs, to which is referred Bill number 200374, entitled, An Ordinance Renaming and Designating Chalfont Playground in Northeast Philadelphia as the Corporal Jimmy O'Connor Memorial Playground, and Bill number 200424, entitled, An Ordinance Renaming and Designating the property commonly referred to as the 30th and Jefferson Playground, located at the corner of 30th and Jefferson Streets, as the Howard McCall Senior Playground in the city of Philadelphia. Respectfully reports it has considered the same and returns the attached bills to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry. It's been moved and properly second that the rules of council. I'm sorry, Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bill numbers 200-374 and 200-424.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 200-374 and 200-424. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and these bills will be placed on our first reading calendar today.
Mr. President, Councilmember Thomas had noted he wanted to be recognized.
Yeah, Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to first thank Ms. Karen for her testimony, but I did want to offer some clarity that the bill that she testified on today has been moved to next week's calendar. So we will be voting on that bill next week. I did not want her to think that we did not hear her testimony and we did not listen to the important issue that people are facing in Philadelphia as it relates to evictions. Thank you, Council President, for allowing me to clarify.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you so much. We will get back on our agenda. And we will now move to our calendar. So, Mr. Decker, will you please read the title of resolution number 200-519.
A resolution recognizing and celebrating the reopening of the historic Philip Jason Memorial House on October 10, 2020, which honors the legacy of Philadelphian Philip Jason, a Korean-American pioneer for democracy, political and religious freedom, and Korean independence.
And at this time, the chair recognizes Councilwoman Kim for a motion on the resolution.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of resolution 200-522.
A resolution recognizing October 2020 as Manufacturing Month and further honoring Oak Foundry for their innovation and dedication to the manufacturing industry in the city of Philadelphia.
Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to speak prior to making the motion on this resolution. As you well know, October is Manufacturing Month, and manufacturing industry has always been one of my primary focuses with small businesses in our neighborhoods, putting people all throughout our city to work. We live in a region that is home to more than 5,600 manufacturing firms. Over 200,000 workers are employed in the sector right here in the city of Philadelphia. COVID-19 has created so many challenges for Philadelphia area manufacturing and industry firms. In partners with Commerce, our PIDC, and the business leaders, we've worked real hard to troubleshoot some of the unique challenges these businesses have faced, just like a lot of businesses with transportation, childcare. But unlike other sectors of the economy, most manufacturing firms were permitted to keep working as essential businesses. Right? But they were faced, as I had stated earlier, with some challenges in their workforce and their supply challenges and their transportation problems. But they adapted rapidly so that we could continue to make products that were critically needed nationally and internationally, and right here in the city of Philadelphia with great partners. These firms did a great job. And despite the challenges, we've had some of the most major successes in the sector on the East Coast. For example, earlier this year, Augusta Westland, a helicopter manufacturer in near Northeast Philadelphia, was awarded a $176 million contract to build training simulators. And we've seen significant amount of industrial development. In fact, the inventory of available industrial land is at an all-time low. All right, warehouse distribution is the future of a lot of our manufacturing and product moving sector. All right, each year for Manufacturing Month, I highlight a Philadelphia manufacturing firm that deserves extra recognition. This year, I selected Oat Foundry. Oat Foundry is a specialty manufacturing firm in the Frankfurt Arsenal, right here in my district, and they all do wonderful things in the Arsenal. They are an award-winning agency of engineers that described what they do as designing and building electromagnetical, measurable, interactive, and other cool stuff. All right, they're from Drexel. All right, they're local. They're pretty smart kids, and they do a fantastic job with the technology, delivering their products and specialty. And it is true. They are a very cool company. I'm coordinating a tour for their facility later this month, and I welcome any members of council who wish to participate to join me. And if you're interested, please reach out to my office. And again, as always, I want to thank you, council, for recognizing that the people who live in the city of Philadelphia are also working in these manufacturing and specialty industries right here in our neighborhoods. So thank you, Council President. With that, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and probably second that the resolution be adopted. All in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of resolution number 200523.
A resolution honoring and congratulating Lisa Forrest on the occasion of her promotion to Battalion Chief of the Philadelphia Fire Department and for becoming the first African-American woman to earn this prestigious position in the 149-year history of the Philadelphia Fire Department.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones. Councilman. Yeah. You on mute?
Thank you, Mr. President. Now I move for its adoption.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it,
Aye.
and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of resolution number 200525.
A resolution condemning President Donald Trump for making a Supreme Court nomination during his presidential election and calling upon Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to defer consideration of the nomination until after the presidential inauguration in January.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson for a motion.
Thank you, Council President. I enthusiastically move for the adoption of this resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Opposed?
Thank you. Ayes have it, and the resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title number 200528.
Mr. Council President,
Yes, sir.
Councilman O'Neill, could I be recorded as voting
You just want to be
nay on
recognized?
the resolution?
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
The same for me, Council President. I oppose it as well.
Okay. Let the record
Thank you.
reflect that Councilman O'Neill and Councilman both voted nay on resolution number 200525. Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read the title of resolution number 200528.
A resolution congratulating Daniel J. Hilferty on his retirement as the President and CEO of Independence Health Group and honoring his contributions to Philadelphia during his career.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Dom.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of resolution number 200529.
A resolution honoring and congratulating the Newman Goretti boys basketball team on their successful 2019-2020 season and overall 24-4 record in the Philadelphia Catholic League Boys Basketball Championships.
Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. We're going to just try to continue to introduce different champions throughout the course of the city every week, just to continue to boost morale and enthusiasm. So I enthusiastically move for the adoption of the resolution, and I congratulate all the participants who were able to be victorious last year.
Second.
Awesome. Thank you. It has been moved and enthusiastically seconded that the resolution be adopted. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is enthusiastically adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of resolution number 200530.
A resolution authorizing the Committee on Global Opportunities and the Creative Innovative Economy to establish an advisory task force on disadvantaged communities, and further authorizing the task force to produce a report of findings and strategies for uplifting disadvantaged persons in Philadelphia through access to arts and culture.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Resolution be adopted. All in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, 200532.
A resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority deeds conveying fee simple title to certain city-owned lots or pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon, situated in the first councilmanic district of the city of Philadelphia, and further authorizing the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority to transfer to the Philadelphia Land Bank fee simple title to such properties pursuant to 16405 of the Philadelphia Code.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second that the resolution be adopted. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of 200534.
A resolution recognizing and celebrating the second annual Latin American Book Fair in Philadelphia for its work in highlighting local Latin American authors, literature, and culture.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman O for a motion on the resolution.
Thank you very much, Council President. On behalf of myself and Councilmember Maria Quinones Sanchez, I'd like to move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. There's been moved and probably second that the resolution be adopted. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, do you have any additional resolutions for today's calendar? Mr. Decker, here.
A resolution authorizing City Council's Committee of the Whole to hold all hearings required pursuant to Bill Number 200364A, which established a requirement that the council hold hearings in connection with anticipated collective bargaining agreements between the city and police employees and the Philadelphia Police Department, represented by the Fraternal Order of Police, introduced by Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye.
Council President,
Yes.
President, this is Bobby Heenan. I'd like to be recorded as no, please.
Thank you. Let the record reflect Councilman Heenan
Same with Councilman O'Neill.
and Councilman O'Neill and Councilman Heenan are voting nay. Thank you. The resolution is approved.
And a resolution authorizing the Committees on Education and on Public Health and Human Services to hold joint hearings examining the School District of Philadelphia's preparedness for public health and environmental emergencies, and to develop best practices that can help the district adequately prepare for these emergencies, introduced by Councilwoman Bass.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Committees on Public Health and Human Services and on Children and Youth to hold joint hearings examining the current and best practices to ensure youth have a successful transition from foster care to thriving adulthood, introduced by Councilwoman Bass.
Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed,
Aye.
ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
There are no other resolutions on the final passage calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. That concludes our calendar for today. Prior to recognizing members regarding speeches, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized in order to comply with the Sunshine Act. The chat feature must only be used for that purpose. With that said, are there any speeches on the part of minority? Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. I wanted to recognize Council Member Isaiah Thomas and the freshman council members for adopting and adjusting to being council members during COVID-19. It is not easy. I recall, as I'm sure all of you do, my first day as a council member, I walked in and I didn't know what to do. There was nobody telling me what to do. I didn't know where the bathroom was. I didn't know how to do anything. And there was no real guidance on how to do things. And I remember I did something, and I think it was Council Member Blackwell who walked over to me and let me know that they had done that like 3 years ago and other things. And I was getting acclimated to working with my colleagues. And I just wanted to say it's not an easy process. And the new council members have done a fantastic job of really navigating this very difficult situation where they are, quarantined and their staffs and working through everything and doing bills and resolutions and getting out there. And particularly with Councilmember Thomas, he's doing a great thing. He checked with me. We talked. There was a little miscommunication, which will happen because, we're quarantined, we're separate, we're working through our staff and all that. And he just very quickly accommodated, kind of what I thought about it. And I tried to work with him and it all worked out fantastic. And I want to thank him for that. And I'm happy to be able to support, his great work. And I look forward to all the contributions. I also wanted to recognize the Philip Jason Memorial Foundation that Councilmember Gim and I introduced a resolution recognizing what they're doing. Just coincidentally, they answered the call for PPE for our sanitation workers. And this past weekend, AFSCME Local 427, the president, Carrington, came by to pick up 6,000 masks, 250 bottles of hand sanitizer. And it just, there are so many citizens and people who step up to support their community, their neighbors, and our city workers. And hats off to the sanitation workers who are out there dealing with, the virus and all that, and making sure our city is safe and clean. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Speeches on behalf of the majority. Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you to all my colleagues for all the support this past week. My wife and I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, and you guys couldn't be more supportive and more, I don't know. I'm just excited. So thank you, guys. I appreciate that first and foremost. Councilmember O talked a little bit about the Arts and Culture Task Force. And the Arts and Culture Task Force is an initiative directly out of the Disadvantaged Communities Task Force. So first of all, Council President, I just want to thank you for your leadership and putting us in a position to be able to listen to citizens all across the city of Philadelphia. As my co-chair and I, Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson, who I'm very grateful to, as we've been listening to citizens of Philadelphia and council members as a whole, I think almost everyone at this point has either attended or had a staff on at least one of the listening sessions. We've heard some consistent narratives and consistent issues that Philadelphians face as it relates to the problems that they see. I applaud all my colleagues who have stepped up to the plate for different initiatives to combat the gun violence that we see in the city of Philadelphia. Not just you, Council President. I got to recognize Councilman Johnson, who's been a champion for that issue. And we know, just putting on my Councilman Jones hat, this is a complex problem that's going to require a lot of people to come together to fix this solution. So we have the lawsuit going on. The Arts and Culture Task Force, again, which is a collaborative effort, will specifically look at how we can address that particular area as it relates to people who've been suffering. But today, the next initiative out of the Disadvantaged Communities Task Force will be a press conference at 2 p.m. And thank you to Councilmember Bass for allowing us to come in your district and launching your district, where we will be communicating resource hubs resource hubs for young people between the ages of 14 and 21, where you can go in the evenings and on the weekends, and you can participate in free activities that will be safe, that will keep you busy, and that will hopefully put you in a position to build mentors and relationships to help them navigate their way through life. If I wasn't on city council, this is the work that I would be doing. And so I have to continue to wear that hat. And our goal is to piece together as many different solutions as possible based on what the citizens of Philadelphia are telling us. So we could do right what you said, Council President, before this session started, and beat this gun violence pandemic, just like we're beating all the other issues that we're facing as a municipality. So if you're free today, please come out and join us at 2 p.m. We'll be at Triumph Baptist Church. We'll be announcing the resource hubs. And this is, again, just one step more as it relates to not only listening to citizens of Philadelphia as it relates to how they're suffering because of this coronavirus pandemic, but also us just taking one more small step in combating this terrible gun violence pandemic that we're facing right now as well, too. So thank you, Council President. Thank you, colleagues. I know that was a lot. I'm very emotional and sleep deprived right now. But we are in a state of emergency, and it requires the maximum amount of time we have for us to put our best foot forward. So I'm here today and ready to fight with you all, and continue this battle. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you so much. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. The joy and celebration that you, Councilmember Thomas, and your wife have is phenomenal. Just hearing your new son's voice as we are in this council session brings me joy. The fact we have another Black boy, another Black life in our city brings me so much hope and joy, even though we have so many challenging situations that are going in our city. And I had to reflect on yesterday's press conference that it's the hope of future children doing well in our city, but also we've got to reflect on the challenges we have in our city. And yesterday's press conference was another piece of hope about what we can do to address the violence in our city. Council President, through your leadership, we had the mayor, a number of council members there, our city solicitor, Marcel Pratt, members of the General Assembly like Senator Street, so many members of this body, Public Interest Law Center, Hogan Lovells, all coming together for this class action to address and allow us as a city to be able to regulate guns based on our own gun laws. And so this class action, and I'm sure many other members of council will speak about this press conference yesterday, but this class action appropriately named Crawford versus the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Many of us in this body know the story of Stanley Crawford and his son, and so many victims were there at the press conference to really talk about what we need to do in this city and do what we need to do to address violence. But that class action lawsuit could have easily had a different title. It could have easily been Johnson versus the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We all know the story of our colleague, Councilmember Johnson, and how the death of his cousin motivated him to get engaged in this work well before he became a member of this body, before he became a state representative, or working for Senator Tony Williams. I first met Councilmember Johnson when I actually had some hair, and he was at Fells, and he was working on anti-violence initiatives then, and starting Peace Not Guns. In fact, I still have his Peace Not Guns email address in my phone because he's been working on this issue all the time that I've known him in this city. And so as I reflect on yesterday's press conference, and recently I got my ballot in the mail, and we all know the importance of voting on November 3rd, and Councilmember Johnson has probably been the most staunch anti-violence advocate we've had in the history of this body, not only in reference to crime and anti-violence, but also victims and supporting victims in the city of Philadelphia. And so he introduced legislation, and we supported his legislation for a ballot question to amend the Home Rule Charter. And I just want to read that ballot question because all the ballot questions are important, on our November 3rd election, but I want to highlight his ballot question, and I'll read it. Shall the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter be amended to create the Office of the Victim Advocate to advocate for crime victims and to work with victim service providers to coordinate, plan, train, educate, and investigate issues relating to crime victims? And I hope that everyone will support all the ballot questions, in particular, ballot question number 2. Now, recently I learned, and I was somewhat shocked, that Reclaim Philadelphia is opposing this initiative. I was surprised because Reclaim is an organization that supports and uplifts Black Lives Matter. And so the fact that they would oppose an office that would support victims like a Stanley Crawford or the other people that were there yesterday, or someone even like our own colleague, Councilmember Johnson, because he and his family have been victims of violence in our city. And when you look at the numbers, if you look at the recent numbers from the Philadelphia Police District, we've had 368 homicide victims in the city of Philadelphia as of last night. That is more than last year. Last year we had 264. So we're already above the number of last year with a 39% increase. And so we need to do all that we can to address the gun violence in our city. Yesterday's announcement of class action lawsuit is one way to do that. We also need to support the victims of violence in our city. Victims like Mr. Crawford, the other plaintiffs in a class action lawsuit, and even victims like our own Councilmember Kenyatta Johnson, who has been a staunch advocate for victims in the city of Philadelphia who have suffered through crime and violence. So I'm hopeful that this was just a brief lapse in judgment by Reclaim, and that they will take a different perspective and support Councilmember Johnson, the victims in the city of Philadelphia, by having this office, and encourage everyone to support all of the ballot questions, and in particular, ballot question number 2, so we can help the victims of violence in our city that so desperately need our support and help as we deal with the issues of crime and violence in our city. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Priorities matter. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since my colleague, Member Green, is recognizing ballot questions, I'd like to point out number 2. Number 2 ballot question is, shall the citizens create a Citizens Police Oversight Commission? And I think equally that is something that we should consider and vote yes for. As we look at the balance between public safety, there are different shades of public safety. Public safety means that when you get stopped by the Philadelphia Police Department at 2 a.m, that you should be treated like a citizen with respect. Also, if Black Lives Matter, as we did on Musgrave, they should matter on Market Street, and they should matter on Market Street in Harrisburg, as exhibited by the lawsuit that we put forth yesterday. I want to cite out to give context that in Afghanistan last year, which is a war zone, there were 22 servicemen that lost their lives. 22. As Member Green talked about, we've exceeded last year's number, over 300 murders in the city of Philadelphia alone, just one city. So as we look to get self-governance over gun laws, it just makes sense. It is important that we be safer in the streets of Philadelphia than we would be in the nation of Afghanistan. It's just common sense. So we've been, this is not our first time at the rodeo. We've gone up against the gun lobbyists. We've gone up against the NRA. We got sued not only as a body, but personally. And here we are again stepping up in 2020 to protect the citizens of the city of Philadelphia. So I want to salute you, Mr. President. I want to salute the mayor for joining us and spearheading this lawsuit, because it shows to the people who asked Member Johnson, myself, other members of council, Gautier, every day, well, what are you doing? What are you prepared to do as you want to save our lives? Well, this says in one statement that we will go up against friend or foe. We have a lot of friends in Harrisburg, but some of them in between Harrisburg and Philadelphia, there's Mississippi, and we're willing to step to the plate to deal with them too. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. Just a couple things I wanted to acknowledge. First and foremost, thank you, Councilman Green. Thank you, Councilman Jones, talking about the ballot position, creating the Office of Victim Advocate. I want to thank the following individuals for being sponsors of this ballot question: Councilman Thomas, Councilwoman Gim, Councilman Squilla, Councilmember Green, Councilmember Brooks, Councilmember Gilmore, Councilman Jones, Council President Darrell Clark. I thank you for being supportive of the legislation. And I don't know if it's misinformation. I know on the state level, there's concern that how the state operates, they have taken more of a punitive approach regarding advocating as it relates to the rights of the victims. But nevertheless, this ballot question has been a result of a year of work with the special committees on gun violence, specifically subcommittee of victims and co-victims of gun violence. And so there are a group of mothers who have lost sons and daughters to gun violence. There are a group of mothers and fathers who will never, ever have that opportunity to have dinner, breakfast, or lunch with their children. They will never, ever have a chance to spend a holiday, a birthday with their children. And so this is the results of me sitting down, organizing, and working with those mothers to make sure that they have a voice and a seat at the table. A lot of times we talk about the issue of criminal justice reform directly from their mouths. Our interests, our voices are always put to the side. And so we want to make sure they have a seat at the table as it relates to trauma support. We want to make sure they have a seat at the table that when a loved one is lost and they need a place to go for a referral, they can come and feel like they have the necessary support that they need, as well as when they're trying to put their lives back together. This office will not duplicate any other services that are being done out there, i.e. the district attorney's office, i.e. victim service organizations across the city of Philadelphia. This will be a hub that specifically deals with advocacy, policy, legislation, training, and supporting and uplifting other organizations like Mothers in Charge, the National Justice Homicide Alliance. And there are other grassroots, boots on the ground organizations that are doing this work day to day, assisting and helping families of murdered victims, families of shooting victims, and other violent crimes that need our support. And so I just wanted to educate everyone, because there's a lot of misinformation about the upcoming ballot question. My office was never consulted, not one time, regarding any recommendations, any suggestions as it relates to how we move forward here in the city of Philadelphia. So I just want to state that for the record. Also, I want to acknowledge the work of Council President Darrell Clark as it relates to us moving forward with the lawsuit around regulating our own destinies, specifically around the issue of gun law. And so I talked to my colleagues early on before we even started council session of how there was a group of young men in Bucks County that was running a gun trafficking operation. And what they would do is they would go from one store to the next store, purchasing guns legally, and then distributing them and selling those guns on the street. This lawsuit will enable us to control our own destiny by regulating those type of incidents where illegal guns are flooding the streets of Philadelphia. So I thank all my colleagues for stepping up to the plate to address this issue. We know it has to be comprehensive. There is not going to be one solution that's going to enable us to combat this issue, but we have to address it comprehensively. And last but not least, at 1 p.m. today, we have a Zoom meeting with the Office of Behavioral Health, an organization called Neighborhood Networks that deals specifically with the issue of trauma. Our communities are hurting. And so we want to figure out, how do we address the issue of trauma? How do we address the issue of grief in our neighborhoods? We know, as I always say, hurt people hurt other people. And at the end of the day, we don't begin getting to the root cause of why these young men are walking around with so much anger and pain that they could take a life with no regard for how it's going to have an impact, not only on that other individual, but also the community as a whole. We have to find out what the root cause of the trauma is coming from. And so that will be at 1 p.m. today. That's when to remind everyone if they want to participate, they are welcome to join. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Keep up the good work. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And I just wanted to speak very, very briefly. As we all know, we woke up this morning, we had the event yesterday in Germantown, in which we, are proceeding and trying to control our own destiny and saying that we want to have a say in terms of how, gun violence is happening in the city of Philadelphia. And that for those who, represent the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, whether it's the state reps in Philadelphia who are very supportive, for the most part, just completely on board, to those who are in the hinterlands or, as Councilman Jones mentioned, the Mississippi part of Pennsylvania. All of these people ran for public office. All of these people were elected to serve their district, but also the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And so it cannot be taken so lightly that these are Pennsylvanians who are dying. Maybe that will sort of shake their consciousness, if you will, if they think of it as not Philadelphians, but as Pennsylvanians, because they have an obligation and a duty to ensure that we are all protected, that we are all under the best of care and living in the best of circumstances. And so the failure that you see here in Philadelphia with the gun violence is a failure across the Commonwealth in every county, in every state rep district, in every state Senate district. It's not just a Philadelphia problem. It's not just a state problem. It's a problem throughout the entire country. And so we need to get a handle on it. We all woke up, as I said this morning, to the reports of what happened in Germantown. As Mr. Council President, as you said, not even a half mile away from where we were yesterday. And it's absolutely outrageous. I just can't even imagine that, this person had an assault weapon, which was laying on the ground on Germantown Avenue in news reports this morning, after he had committed a homicide with that assault weapon and attempted homicide with two others. And so, I'm just flabbergasted and don't know really exactly what to say, except that I thank you, Mr. President, and to all the powers that be that really have worked on this piece of legislation, on this lawsuit, to make sure that those in Harrisburg know that they have a responsibility and a duty to all of us. So I just really wanted to put that out there. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to all of my colleagues. We're all going through this, and I really appreciate you. And also, really quickly, Councilman Johnson, on your ballot initiative, we want to support that. I can't tell you how many homes I've been into where somebody's been killed in a neighborhood, and I'm sitting, on somebody's sofas, their mama's sofa, their grandmama's sofa, everybody's in mourning, and nobody knows what to do. We need this office. I wish we didn't need it, but we need this office. If we don't need any other office right now, we need this office. And so I'm 1,000% with you, Councilman. I want all the people in the 8th District to know how important this is across the city of Philadelphia. We have to support this ballot initiative, undoubtedly. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and thank all of you for your continued support to make sure that we improve the quality of life for all Philadelphians. As we've seen over the years, this is not a North Philly thing, a West Philly thing, a Germantown thing, South Philly, everywhere. And hopefully we will get to a point where we are successful, and we will make sure we keep everybody abreast as the litigation proceeds. So thank you so much.
Council President?
Yes, sir. Yes, Councilman Johnson.
If you don't mind, can I just get a small point of information for clarification? I mentioned that this afternoon at 1 o'clock, we will be meeting with the organization is called Network of Neighbors. I said neighbor. I said something else, and there's another organization. So I stand corrected. I want to give the proper organization their props, which is Network of Neighbors. We will be hosting them at 1 p.m. That's the organization that does trauma-informed services out and about in the community. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. That concludes our speeches on behalf of the minority and the majority today. With that, I will recognize Councilman Jones for a motion to adjourn. Councilman.
Try to be good with my mic. Thank you, Mr. President. I move that council stand adjourned until Thursday, October 15, 2020 at 10 a.m.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that council stand adjourned until Thursday, October 15, 2020, 10 a.m. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.